you got to siphon through crap sometimes. And that's what Joe and I are going to do this Sunday. We're going to siphon through just crap and crap of football. But hey, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, even hell, as little as an hour ago, four really good college football games as well.
Go Bucks.
Yeah, Bucks looked real. That's the Buccaneers, not Buccaneers, the Buckeyes team I know we could see, but the Peach Bowl is what really stole the show yesterday. Arizona State and
Yeah.
Texas, just an absolute dogfight.
Yeah, the Buckeyes, the two losses they had to Michigan, unranked Michigan, and then Oregon the first time, they didn't look like themselves. And in that game yesterday, they looked like themselves. Yeah.
But something of note with everything that went on in college football that could happen in the NFL is just how important bye weeks really they can be, or
Yeah.
how much they may hurt you. Like
Yeah.
that's where it all comes into play. Because look, we got a huge game this Sunday night, Detroit, Minnesota. I'm going to come out right out of the gates. Minnesota's been the better team as of late, but I think Detroit needs to buy more because their bye week was week 5.
I would probably agree if you're looking for me to respond to that. I think Detroit is the better team. I think they've got the better quarterback. I think they've got the better talent. I mean, yes, Justin Jefferson is out there, but Amon-Ra St. Brown isn't bad. And then all of a sudden, out of freaking nowhere, the Lions show up with this Patrick kid, right? The big hurt is that David Montgomery's done for the season. He got hurt in the Bills game, actually. But that's the best game of the weekend. That's pretty much the only game maybe not worth watching. There's some stuff in it for Bills fans, right? Just because of seeding and whatnot. So the Bills are locked into the 2 and seeding, meaning who they're going to play first round and who they're potentially going to play second round if they can get there before they, have to play the Chiefs inevitably. But yeah, so we'll see.
And don't go past the locker room blaring Coolio, and that's just another key to.
Did you see the did you see the picture? So there's the video of them walking through Gangster's Paradise, and then there was somebody took a picture from the other side of Josh Allen standing in the door of the locker room. Did you see that picture?
Yeah, I think it was like
big.
Was Matthew Bovee or someone like that?
Matthew Bovee. Big smile on his face, like, oh, it's about to go down.
Yeah.
It was just clutch.
So if we go back in time 2 weeks ago, I'm just so glad that what you guys did to the Jets wasn't the Patriots. I'll say that. Look,
that game was annoying. The Patriots game, we talked about that for a while. That game was wildly annoying. Just in as much as like I expected the Buffalo Bills to do a lot better in that football game or play like a champion. And there just was a whole lot of not playing like a champion in that football game. And then it got to the point where the Patriots were like, what are we doing? We're trying to lose this game. And they started punting in weird times. It's like, exactly. Like, what are the Bills doing? Why are you even close in this game? But yeah, anyway.
The way that football game went to me was basically the old narrative of good teams will find ways to win football games and bad teams find ways to lose football games.
It was basically so on my post-game show after that game, I talked to John and Jerry, former Buffalo Bills, about it. It was the Bills drought years. What the Patriots, you guys used to do to us. Like we would come out and we'd be up 2 touchdowns or 17-3 in the first half, and then inevitably you guys would just wipe us in the second half. It was like, it's over. Yeah.
Yeah, like where it's just like, oh, hey, when you think you've got it, and then it just gets snatched away. My big takeaway from that game, too, was the fact that you guys were pretty banged up as well on the defensive side of the ball. I know DBs were there, but still, when it came time to make a play, guys made a play. One thing I'll say, too, and I know today the Pro Bowl stuff came out, and I'll say this right now, All-Pro is more validating, in my opinion, for an NFL player than making a Pro Bowl, because
Pro Bowl is nothing. It's a beauty pageant. It's you can get in the Pro Bowl from retweets.
Like, I love the fact that, like, I saw the Dawkins quote today when I think he was at Wendy's or Josh was at Wendy's, and he basically called them and he's like, okay, we don't want to be in Orlando. We want to be in New Orleans, which
exactly.
Look, we know the Sugar Bowl was played today. It was awful what happened there yesterday morning. But my big concern with that, people weren't even starting to say this until the NFL made note of it. The Super Bowl's in that very city in less than in 6 weeks from now. And say, for example, if you guys end up making it there, I imagine you and many other Western New Yorkers will get a second loan on your home to go there.
Doubt it. That is not happening.
Oh, okay. Because that's one question I always would have for you. Because, like, I know that week is like, if Buffalo ever gets there, it's like there's certain people like I would target. I'm like, Joe, you're on here. But with that though,
if I win the lottery, I'm a season ticket holder, and season ticket holders get entered into a lottery, and they draw teams they draw people, right? So you can win the lottery and get tickets at a decent price. But I'm not paying $15,000 a ticket and then go there and then have them lose. I'd come home divorced. So. Right.
No, because the point I was just making though is just the fact that there's this public. So the Super Bowl is a heightened event, and the fact that you have an incident like this around the Sugar Bowl, which look. Very prestigious event that happens yearly in New Orleans. So that's just another thing of note. I was just saying that the whole thing of the second loan, because look, we know for a lot of Bills fans, it's a once in a lifetime experience, But I always said this with the Super Bowl. I feel like for me, just because I'm not someone who lives in the city of the team they cheer for, I feel like it would be just as cool to be in the city with your people watching it. Because you like think about it, whenever Super Bowl's won, I remember seeing like, you see Boston go crazy and reluctantly in 2017. You saw like the light posts with the Philadelphia Eagles, where they were just had climbing up light posts and all that stuff. So there's just that added element of like you're with your crowd.
Yeah, let me first start by saying to the spoiled Patriots fan, it is a once in a lifetime thing for all NFL fans.
Mm-hmm.
No team is guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl. To be honest with you, the place to be if the Buffalo Bills ever win a Super Bowl is in Buffalo, because this city is going to be nuts for a week. Like I have it on record with some old school. We do a program on Tuesday nights called On the Beat, where we bring a different Buffalo Bills beat reporter onto our network, and we just interview them between the Monday press conference and the Wednesday press conferences, based on what happened and what's going to happen, the next week. And I've got 2 or 3 of those guys that are like, yes, we'll do a show, and 2 of them were like, well, if I'm sober, like the Tuesday after the Super Bowl. Like, so even the beat reporters are like, I may be drunk on Tuesday still.
The one thing I would always say though is the more than anything would be the parade that would occur if Buffalo were to win. Like I know the duck boats are a big thing in New England, but I gotta wonder, like, not even the vehicle would be, but I just know the party that would occur if it were to happen.
It would probably, instead of like winding through the city, it would probably go from wing stop to wing stop, right? So it would hit all the major wing places. That's how the parade would actually go. But yeah, which would be wild.
Basically what Eric Wood did on Saturday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He had a shirt that I liked until it said Patriot hate. And I'm like, okay, it's like you were doing so good. And then you had to throw in those 2 little words. I'm like, come on, Eric, what are you doing? But I get it. As I'm watching Canada play hockey, and there's a guy in a Bills hat at the game.
The Bills.
Yep. That's
I'm wearing my AFC East champion, my 5th AFC East champion hat, 5th in a row, by the way. So
I'm wearing my classic Patriot hat.
Yeah.
But no, with this coming weekend, because obviously, folks, if you're looking, like we can talk about the games, there's not a lot to talk about the games. But the question I have for you more than anything, it's a 2-parter. One, who's the team you would like to see in the wild card round? But then more importantly, who's the team in the playoffs besides Kansas City that really kind of, not keeps you up at night, but kind of like, you're kind of keeping tabs on, like, oh, if they come to Western New York, it's going to be a 60-minute, let's call it a bar fight, 60 minutes of just like ground and pound, just like, it's going to be a war.
So obviously, as the standings look today, Chiefs 1, Bills 2, locked in, right? Yeah. Ravens play the Steelers this week, which we'll talk about. Ravens are 3, Steelers are 5. Whoever wins that game will end up as the 3 seed. Texans at 4. They cannot be, I don't think, be bounced from that. Chargers have locked in as the 6th seed. And then in the hunt, the Broncos. What are they? If they win, they're in, I think, right? But they're at 84% chance of making the playoffs. As the 7 seed. On the bubble, the Dolphins at 11%, the Bengals at 5%. I'll just tell you right now, and this isn't a secret to any Buffalo Bills fan, like, I don't want to see the Bengals. Like, certain teams match up well against other teams. The Bengals just match up well against us, and we don't do, our defense does. Joe Burrow kills us. I don't say Carson Palmer. How funny is that? That's how old I am. Joe Burrow crushes us, like, offense to defense, and Lou Anarumo just knows how to shut Josh Allen down. Like, it's super bizarre. Give me the Dolphins all day long in Buffalo in January. Not to mention, their quarterback is made of glass. Their $50 million quarterback is made of glass. At what point in time is Tua is a nice guy. He's a nice player. He's a good football player. He's a good quarterback. Every time the dude turns around, he's getting hurt. They can keep him forever, because it seems like more times than not, he's not playing football. If I had to guess, dude, it's going to be the Broncos, because what's going to happen? So the Broncos are playing the Chiefs this weekend. Pat Mahomes, who did not make the Pro Bowl, is not that it matters. You're right, though. The Pro Bowl should go away. It should just be all pros. You would expect the Broncos to beat the Chiefs and secure that number 7 seed, which I would be okay with. The Chiefs are. Bo Nix is Bo Nix is a nice player. Cortland Sutton is a nice player. There's some good football players on that football team. The cold isn't going to bother the Broncos as much as it would the Dolphins. It's not going to bother the Bengals either. So if I had my druthers, I'd take the Dolphins, and then second, I would take the Broncos, and then, please, for the love of God, I don't want to see the Bengals. And to be honest with you, I'd like to see the Ravens win this weekend so that they can secure that number 3 spot, so the Bills don't have to see them like till later, right? So
yeah. So my thing is too, and I've said this from the jump, and because I see so many Kansas City fans where it's like, oh, you know what? Oh, the Bengals. Like, we don't mind the Bengals. I want to remind Chiefs fans, I know they've won 2 Super Bowls in a row. Who's the last team to beat you in the playoffs?
that's right. Yeah, Chiefs fans are ridiculous. They're almost as bad as Patriot fans were back in the day. I mean, they're just at the point where it's. But although Ravens fans are right there too, just all this MVP conversation has gotten super duper old. Like it's just but it's the Bengals are a good football team. I don't, and chances are they're going to play. Their problem has been the defense, right? And chances are they're going to play good defense in the playoffs. It's the same thing with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are getting hot at the right time, which absolutely sucks. But
yeah, I still say this with Kansas City though. I would have liked to seen them lose one of those games down the stretch, like even like the Black Friday game. Like I know they look, they have the one loss to you guys, but at the end of the day, that was a game that that could have gone either way.
Right.
You know,
the Christmas Day game that'd have been great. Right.
Yeah, Christmas Day game, but that's the kind of game too where it's just like, oh, they're looking good because like right now we're kind of starting to see the separation, like the whole, I don't like to use it, but like the boys among men,
Yep,
kind of thing. You're starting to see who are boys, who are the men. But with Buffalo, like I love that because look, Miami, I think if they get in, that's a simple one and done. There's just it's not a failed season, but it's a lost year for them just because of everything that's happened injury wise, like you said, with Tua being made of glass, the concussion.
It's been hilarious. Like,
it has been. This is the thing too, and I say this, and I don't know how much of a hot take it is, but I still feel like if you're looking at the teams that are set up for long-term success besides you, I think it's like New England has the building blocks. I'm not saying that they're going to be Buffalo, but it's like where we are right now is kind of like that. You know how you guys were with Josh, where it's like you see what he can do. You know what he was capable of. That's how I view Drake right now.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, with New York, it's going to be. I'm gonna laugh when they hire Rex Ryan as head coach. I'm not. It's him and Louis Riddick going from ESPN to Florham Park. I think that's where they're.
It's going to be him or Mike Vrabel, right? I mean, it's got to be Vrabel, and Vrabel was good with the Titans, so much so that I didn't like playing the Titans.
Yeah, and then like I'll talk about my coach in a little bit, but then with the Dolphins, it's just this whole question mark of like who's going to be there because I think they're in a bit of cap trouble, so they're going to. And I'd rather talk to Greg from Cover One about this because if you need cap help, you go to Greg.
Right,
but with them though, it's just now this whole unknown of like who are we and like what are we about? Because like look, they have some good players, but they're either hurt or they're just having down years. Like Tyreek Hill's didn't have the best season, and then New England. Look, I know it's been terrible. Like they went from having a great game against Buffalo to getting their ass kicked by the Chargers in prime spot. But, hey, play your cards right. And that's when you could potentially, I'm not saying they'll be back, but they're that team where it's like, if at the end of next season, they're that team where it's like, hey, in 2026,
right,
watch for New England. Kind of like what we were doing with Detroit a few years ago, where when they knocked out the Packers in the playoffs and it was like, hey, next year the Lions take that leap. Yeah, so that's what I have to say about that.
Well, the Lions road has been long. It's taken them a while to get to this point. Very rare does it happen super quick, like it did with the Patriots in 2001. I would say like it did with the Bills in 2020. I mean, the Bills were a playoff team in 2019, but they looked different in 2020, right? That's the year Josh Allen took the Josh Allen leap that everybody says every quarterback. Oh, his numbers are better than Josh Allen's as a rookie. That means he's going to take the Josh Allen leap in year 3. It's like, that's not really a thing.
Like everyone's doing that with Anthony Richardson right now,
right? It's not really a thing, guys. If you want to pump the brakes on that one, we'll see, right? I mean, you got to figure Ramondre Stevenson's not going to be there when they get to that status. There's some nice players on that Patriots defense that to me didn't show up this year at all, as far as that goes. And obviously Barmore's hurt, which made that whole game even more frustrating. It's like, why are we not running the football straight down their throats? Like, what is happening? But it is what it is. But yes, to your point, I mean, I think the position, the Patriots seem to be in a better position right now. The Jets are a dumpster fire. It's how can you have that good of a roster and F it up so bad, right? Go ahead.
I was gonna say too, and my wife wanted to watch the Aaron Rodgers stuff, and we watched the first episode, and it was all football, so it was great. And then and then like I was like half watching the second episode, and I look up, and it's like him and Jordan Poyer in like the middle of the rainforest doing weird shit, and I'm like, I'm out. But
smoking, doing hallucinogens, right? That's what they're called. So and praying to weird gods. That's basically what that whole thing is. Hiya something, but I don't know what it is.
But no, it's like because of the Jets. That's the one takeaway I have for my season still is the fact that we ruined their year. That's like the one big like smile on my face that like we knocked them down at rock bottom with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. But no, going back to your point with the playoffs though, like and then Denver, I think Denver's that team right now where it's like you're gonna be good, but you still like look the kid needs some time still to develop. I think he needs that how do you say it, reality check. Like you know how like how you're saying 2019 Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Get to the playoffs. And then next year we really see Bo Nix not ascend, but like kind of take that step to where it's like, hey, everyone thought not he was going to be a bust, but no one thought he was going to live up to what he did in college at Auburn and Oregon. But now we're seeing, hey, he's with the right coach. He's got the right pieces. He's got something cooking there.
Well, it's called a sophomore slump for a reason. And the reason is because defenses catch up to you. I mean, there's right. I mean, there's an aspect of like the big test is always, okay, you broke out. You found things that you like to do. Yeah. And the team, the coach, the offensive coordinator found things that you're good at. Well, we're going to take that away from you. Right. So, I mean, it's effectively kind of what we saw Ben Roethlisberger go through as he came up, what we saw Tom Brady go through as he came up. I mean, I'm going to say very few quarterbacks, come out hot and stay hot forever. Right. Yep. When you look at even the career arch of Roethlisberger and Brady, it was very dink and dunk, short pass stuff, very kind of easy, simple offense things. And then they grew into the quarterbacks that they were, very similar to what Josh has done. Pat Mahomes might be the only one. As much as Pat Mahomes kind of had a down year this year, finally, I mean, he came out hot, and figuring out Pat Mahomes is a whole different conversation. Joe Burrow's another one, hasn't really slacked a whole lot other than the injuries, right? Injuries has kind of caused it, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure what happens with Bo Nix next year and Drake May for that matter.
The other one too I'm interested by is Jaden Daniels, just because it's like
so good. He won me a fantasy league this year. Yeah.
He did too, and like the player you mentioned earlier, Cortland Sutton won me the podcast titled YWC Football Talk Fantasy League on Monday night.
Nice, very good.
Him, and then also too Amon-Ra St. Brown and George Kittle Monday night. So I was a little bit of a sweat there until Amon-Ra got that fourth down touchdown. But no, I still say this with Cincinnati because Cincinnati was, and this is not shade of Buffalo, but they were my Super Bowl pick going into the year just because I was like they had a real last dance feel because it's like T. Higgins is probably gone. Joe Burrow's coming back from the injury. Jamar Chase is going to get a Brinks truck this offseason. Literally, he's probably going to get more than what Justin Jefferson just got because
I can hear it beeping already. They're backing it up, right?
It's like when you get a penalty on first. I think Buffalo plays it too, where it's like you get a penalty on first down, and it's just like beep, 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 beep.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's why I picked them, and I was just always like when they got to the roughs, like when we beat them week 1, I was like, okay, this is cool. Week 2 against Kansas City, I was like, okay, there. It was week 3 against it was week 3 where I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, too, they're getting hot. They're winning games. They're like, look, I know they're playing some inferior opponents, but still, you're beating the teams you have to beat. And if we see that same, because here's the big kicker I have. So you have Baltimore and Cleveland in the first game Saturday, which Cleveland's plus 20.5 on the point spread. That's college.
Wow.
That's a college level spread. Yeah. No faith in Bailey Zappi. And then my whole thing is, though, is if Baltimore really goes out there and puts, quote unquote, belt the ass on the Browns, what does the Pittsburgh Steelers come out and do Saturday night? Like, do we see maybe, hey, a TJ Watt kind of not play 4 downs? Do we see maybe Justin Fields gets the start as opposed to Russ? Because look, the Steelers are locked in.
If the Ravens win that football game, the Steelers, Russ isn't playing, TJ Watt's not playing. Like none of those guys are playing. George Pickens isn't playing. Nobody's playing.
Exactly. So that's where I kind of think of it now, where it's like kind of watch and go by because then hey, Pittsburgh's locked in. They'll probably get the 5 seed. They'll end up playing the Houston Texans, which. Look, I'll say this right now. The Houston Texans, I know, look, they beat you. They beat me. But the game I look at as the big red flag for them was, do you remember the Sunday Night Football game they played against Detroit back in November?
Who is this?
Houston.
I think so.
They were up like 23 to 7 or something like that, and then they lost on the last second field goal.
Yep.
Like, once I saw that, that's where I was like, okay, Houston, that's a football game you should have won. You had Detroit on a bad night. Yeah. The fact that Jared got 5 interceptions still gets the win.
That was the game. That's right. Yeah, Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions. In INTs and still won. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing with them where it's just like, you have to win football games like that to make people buy like, hey, look, this Detroit team who's awesome and has weapons at every single offensive position. Look, they had a rough night against the Houston Texans, and the Houston Texans took advantage of it. Like the game you guys played against them. That was a bad 2-game stretch for Josh. And you know what? It was what it was.
There was some interesting stuff that kind of reared its head in those two games, but it's not really worth talking about here. So
yeah.
That's the funny thing too about the MVP race. The Buffalo Bills lost. Well, they've lost 3 games this year, but 2 of those 2 early where Josh didn't play well, they lost to 2 playoff teams, right? Whereas the Lamar has Pro Bowlers all around him, has an MVP behind him, and they lost to the Browns, right? They lost to some pretty crappy football teams.
They lost to the Browns and the Raiders.
Right? Yeah, the league MVP got outplayed by Jameis Winston. Come on now, right? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I think that was the game. That was the game after Deshaun got hurt as well. My thing with the whole MVP stuff is I think people just look at like, oh, Lamar did this on Christmas and he looks great. But my whole thing too is the fact, like, and I think we said this 2 weeks ago, but with Josh, it's the fact that there's so many first time in NFL history he did this. First time he's done this. Only
quarterback in history. Yeah, only quarter. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff out there, dude.
Yeah, just because like too, and I'll ask you this as well for this, but with the Buffalo Bills this year in the fan base, look, I know you like to throw out the wildest dreams land quote a lot on Twitter and X, but this year though, going into the year, I feel like, and this is me talking, and you can either agree or disagree, but with Buffalo, I feel like if they were to get to the Super Bowl, it's fantastic. But if they lose out in the conference, say if they lose in the divisional round again, or they lose in the conference championship, I think it's viewed as a successful season just because, look, Miami was supposed to win the division. New York was supposed to win the division. Buffalo, it was supposed to be a bounce back year. Yeah. Meanwhile, I think if they get in there to the 2 seed, no matter who you play, you win. Divisional round, maybe match up with the Ravens or the Texans or the Steelers, who knows? And then it's the rematch of Tony Romo's favorite game to call in the NFL in Arrowhead Stadium.
Yep.
But then it's like the same thing as 2021, where it's like 2020, how, get to the playoffs, and I feel like people really forget about how good of a football game that was, you and the Colts in that wild card round.
Yeah, that was there. That was COVID year, right? That was a good football game. I think the question you're trying to ask is, even if the Bills get bounced in the playoffs, it's still a successful year.
Yeah,
I would say that there was an expectation from Bills Mafia that this was going to be a slight regression year. You don't lose 5 You're not supposed to lose 5 captains. Your starting center for the last 4 or 5 years, flip guys around, put a dude at center in Connor McGovern, who hadn't played center since I think his first year in college or something like that. There was only one wide receiver returning that had ever caught a pass from Josh Allen, and it was 10 or something like that. It wasn't very many passes. Maybe it was 50. It wasn't a whole lot of passes. I would say this: it's going to depend on who they lose to and how.
Yeah.
Right. So if the Buffalo Bills lose to the Chiefs in a close game, and there's no mistakes made in the final 2 minutes, there's going to be some, rawness because we lost to the Chiefs again. There's going to be national media. Oh, they still can't get past the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are going to thump their chest about it too. If we lose in the playoffs because of the defense again, like the defense not showing up, it's going to be a problem.
Like, so Cincinnati.
That's right. That's against anybody. Whoever we play, if the defense does not pull its weight this time, it's going to be an issue. So how we lose is going to be probably important.
Yeah, I also say that Cincinnati game is a little bit of an asterisk with me, just because I think at that point, I was like, look, I think the team was they were mentally out of it. They're mentally checked out. They had that one game against New England where, like, look, they had the 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. And then the fact that, like, look, they barely got by Skylar Thompson. That's where I was like, that game had so much emotion to it where they're basically running on fumes and they were just waiting for, it was just at that point, hey, let's get to the offseason. There's something that happened that's way bigger than football. We want to make sure that's good. And he's back and playing better, he had a career year this year. But yeah, like when I look at all the teams too in the AFC playoff picture, like the ones that I feel like the true ones where I'm like, they can be there. Like, obviously, look, you guys, Kansas City, Baltimore. Part of me still wants to throw Pittsburgh or the Chargers in there just because they're the dark horse teams. But at the same time, too, from Pitt, I'm just like, the way they've been playing lately, it's basically the opposite of what you're supposed to do going to the playoffs, being hot and cold. And then with Kansas City, though, look, I feel like there's 2 things I think it's going to happen. Like, I think we said this before. They're either going to have their worst game on their worst possible day where everyone thinks, oh, they can do this and this. Or, you know what? Like, even if they get over the mistakes, it's like, say if they have like a, not so good divisional round, everyone's going to go, they'll get past it and just do what they usually do, where like this year too, we don't know if that happens, or you know what, we just snap our fingers and in the divisional round, Travis Kelce, 11 receptions, 125 yards, maybe a touchdown or 2. And then
Noah Gray is good, by the way.
He is. I'm just saying, though, because I've said this all year with Kelce, because in the fantasy football world, I was telling people don't draft him. he's not that he was going to regress, but I was like, he's 35.
Oh, he's regressed. Yeah.
He like, just general regression because of age. That's why I've said it.
Yep.
And he's only had, I think, 2 or 3 touchdowns on the entire season. So that take aged great. But I was like, there's the world too, where he's going to go psychopath in the playoffs. And just because I feel like with them, it's like, hey, we got something good in Noah Gray. Travis, we've honored you for what you've done. The contract you got this year was basically getting the gold watch at a company you've been at for 25 years. That's a contract Clark Hunt gave him. But no, if he goes out there and performs in the playoffs, no one, that's the thing. Everyone's going to remember the regular season where it's like, oh, hey, he did this there. Oh, but in the playoffs, he went off and we're three-peating.
Yeah, for sure. Doing something that no NFL quarterback has ever done.
Nope.
So, and according to Ryan Clark, never mind. So,
oh, God.
Yeah. Never mind.
That's another topic. That's just another one. I don't understand him because I saw a tweet about that recently. Everyone's just like, remember the days of SportsCenter where it was just like pure sports nerds at heart.
Yeah,
like the Scott Van Pelts, like the Chris
Fowler's. I go way before that. I go back when Rich Eisen was on SportsCenter. Like
with hair.
With hair. I'm old, so right. So Stuart Scott. Like I'm way Dan Patrick. Like long time ago.
Yeah.
So it's just sorry. To come back to what I digress from. And if this is, controversial, so be it. For Ryan Clark to be on live television and say that Lamar Jackson has to win a Super Bowl for the evolution of the black quarterback when Pat Mahomes is about to do something that no quarterback has ever done in the history of the NFL, is he not black enough? Because that's what you just said.
Yeah, I know. It's
literally that's what he said. He said that Pat Mahomes isn't black enough, right? It's just like
what sip of my Pepsi in.
Yeah,
but,
sorry.
Yeah, I don't. That's why I feel like with all the shows now, it's like you just have like the hot takes. That's why I like to avoid stuff like that. Like,
and then he tried to pretend he didn't say it. Oh, that's not what I said. I did make it about race. What?
So, you did.
Could you? No, I mean, I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna get in trouble on this show. You're gonna give me canceled, Griff. That's probably what you want. That's the whole plan. This whole thing's a setup.
No. You're a friend of the show. Friend of the show. I don't get friends of the show canceled. But no, that's the thing with it too, where everyone's just like, all of this and this of Lamar. Like, look, maybe Lamar gets there and wins it. I don't know, but I just don't need this whole thing now where it's like legacy of like, just because you don't do this, like you're not established. I feel like, and I don't know if you're gonna hate me for saying this, but I feel like Brady created like a false narrative of how easy it is to win. That's why with a team like Kansas City, you can't take what they're doing for granted and just think they're going to go on this like LeBron James Miami run where every year they're going to get there. There's going to be some years where, look, hey, he may get to the conference finals X amount of years because Brady did the same thing too. Man, like I remember there was always the crazy stat of it was Manning, Roethlisberger, or Tom in every single AFC championship game, I think from like 2003 to like 2019.
Yep.
So, and also too, on your Ben Roethlisberger thing from earlier, I still feel like he has one of the more underrated primes in NFL history. Because like, look, I just see so many kids. Like I feel like most accounts of dumb takes are just like 12-year-olds running it now. But I feel like so many of them will go, "Oh, Ben Roethlisberger's this." I'm like, if you go watch Ben Roethlisberger from like 2004 when he was a rookie to like 2013,
he was good.
There's a reason he's got 2 rings and was always in that conversation.
He was
classic
good.
matchups.
Yeah.
Classic matchups in the playoffs.
Yeah, Tom Brady. I don't think there was an expectation that winning is easy with Tom Brady.
He's created the precedence that for other teams.
Yeah, but it was a perfect. I mean, it was a perfect stew. When you talk about Tom Brady and the evolution of who he became as a quarterback, in as much as understanding defenses, taking the easy throws, finding the easy ways to beat you, and then Bill Belichick was going to stuff your the other team's offense. It was just a perfect storm every time you not every time, but for the most part when you played them. They had 2 pieces. They had 2 geniuses on each side of the football. And I would say that neither one could win without the other, but clearly Tom proved that wrong, right? So Tom went to Florida and won with the Bucs while Bill went down, kind of circled the toilet a little bit there after Tom left. But which is Bill Belichick's career without Tom Brady. Bill Belichick did not have a great career like as the Browns head coach. Anyways, whatever. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's the point where I'm getting at, where I completely agree with you, where it's like the 2 are made together because you kind of see the world now with Kansas City where, look, Andy Reid was never able to get it done beforehand. He had all the time in Philly. Look, he got to Super Bowl, but guess who beat him in the Super Bowl?
Yep.
It was Tom.
Yep.
And then he gets to Kansas City. Look, they had the Alex Smith years, which I still feel like there's a lot of people out there who don't realize that they were still good when they were with Alex Smith.
They were good. Yep. They were not world beaters, but they were good football teams.
Yeah, like they're constant. They basically are doing right now what you want from an NFL program, like from 2013 to 2000 before Patrick.
Yeah.
Like, always winning, you're always in the mix, you're always in the conversation. You might lose in the playoffs, but just the fact that like you slowly did that, and then you basically realize, hey, there's a kid out there who, if we go get him, we could be set up, and then now they've won 3 championships.
What's funny about culture and franchises is it's the 2 games difference, right? Not that it was for real 9-7. The Bills were always 7-9 for basically 17 years, whereas the Chiefs were always 9-7 or 10-6, right? They were like those 2 games make the difference between a 17-year playoff drought and being actually a pretty good football team. And then we got a quarterback, and now we're awesome.
Yeah, but then it's like too with Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh's been doing the same thing for the last 15 years. No matter who the quarterback is, they just always find a way, and they're going to win their 8 to 10 games a year and just maybe get to the playoffs. But I always say this with the Steelers too, because there's a subsection of fans that will come out from time to time and go, "Oh, you know what? We should get rid of Mike Tomlin." The day they do that, there's going to be regret coming from the Steel City.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin is people. It's funny because he's not Marvin Harris, not Marvin. It was Marvin Lewis. He's not Marvin Lewis, right? It's just different as far as that goes. I feel like Mike Tomlin is one of the best head coaches to ever coach football. Like, I think he's really that good. And yeah, there's going to be regret, but we say that, and then you get teams like the Colts that go from Peyton Manning right to Andrew Luck, the Green Bay Packers, who go from Brett Favre right to Aaron Rodgers, right? And now potentially Jordan Love. And Jordan Love isn't Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre yet, but it doesn't. I mean, nobody does. It seems like everybody should have to go through the shit that the Bills went through. Jim Kelly and then nobody for 20 years. that seems like what should happen to everybody. Purgatory.
Like what we've been through for the last like 4 or 5 years.
Milk, yes.
Yeah,
McCorkle.
We had McCorkle with May. Now it's a big question mark to wait and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I feel like you want that, but at the same time too, everyone's got to go through that. So like whenever Kansas City's like, because that's the thing with Kansas City, I always say, it's when Kelsey leaves. It's if they lose Steve Spagnuolo. This year, they've got a lot of guys.
I don't think he's ever leaving. I don't think Spags is ever leaving.
I think for years it's always been, why doesn't he get a second crack at being a head coach? But I think I could see him getting interviews but not taking the job. I can see
millions of dollars and he's getting Super Bowl rings. Yeah. I mean, what is the point?
But going back to your Colts thing, I learned something recently because I started getting on the train of why does Chris Ballard still have a job? Did you know that since 2017, every other team in the AFC South has won the division at least 2 times, and the Colts have won 0?
Interesting. Yeah, why does Chris Greer still have a job, right? In Miami, same thing. So it looked like he's about to get fired. But yeah,
I mean,
that is interesting.
That kind of money.
that is interesting that they're the only team that has not won it at least 2 times.
I just think with the Colts too, I think they run on the whole thing of like, Andrew Luck, he retired 2 weeks before the year, and they kind of like ran with that for like 3 or 4 years, and now it's just like, okay, what are you? Because the fact, look, they have games where Anthony Richardson looks great. Like, I know you guys went in and took care of them. Us, we let up late, and then they lose to the freaking New York Giants, which, look, I was thrilled about, but Colts, you don't lose to that team.
Yeah, you don't. But I mean, Joe Flacco's a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so Anthony Richardson. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bust, but I mean, I'm close.
Yeah, I'm on the fence where I'm like, with quarterbacks, because I did this with Mac, and that's where I was like not proven wrong, but I just kind of stuck to my morals on that, where I feel like you have to give it a 3-year window for every draft quarterback.
Yeah.
Kind of like with Josh. I did the same thing with Josh, where I was like, let's see how 2020 goes.
Yeah, but John, as much as they called Josh's first 2 years horrible, they weren't horrible. There was stuff in there where you were like, whoa. Like, this kid is going to be good. Like there were things. The big one that gets lost. This is the greatest football dudes having an ADD football conversation ever. Like literally, we're all over the place, and it's just for me, it's compelling conversation. Yeah. Josh's first year as a quarterback in the NFL, his primary targets were Kelvin Benjamin and Robert Foster.
Get away from being a tight end.
Robert Foster. In his second year in the NFL, they returned, of the 9 offensive linemen that he had his rookie season, they returned 0 of them. Like, he had a horrible football team around him, probably one of the worst that has ever been fielded in the NFL. His backup quarterback,
Derek Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, it just, and Derek is kind of the one that kind of began to show him the ropes a little bit. But even still, inside of that, Josh was doing stuff like he owned the Dolphins back then. You know what I mean?
Vikings game.
The Vikings game, when like that Viking, it actually, people talk about, oh, the Vikings game is when I knew that Josh Allen was the man. So I was at the preseason game, his rookie season, when he went in late against the Panthers, and he brought them back to win the game in that, like, the big pass the corner of the end zone to Ray McLeod. And I remember that play and his drive. It was great. I remember the Vikings game and being like, holy crap, who is this kid? Not really saying who is this kid. But for me, it was the second Dolphins game. That Charles Clay dropped the touchdown in the end zone. He owned the Dolphins. He turned around Kiko Alonso, which Buffalo lore, the legend of Kiko Alonso, like, he made Kiko look silly in that football game and was throwing the football everywhere. There was very much this dude can play football if we can, like, rein him in. I don't feel like Josh was given a fair shake his first 2 seasons. I feel like there very much could have been the 2020 Josh Allen earlier if he didn't have Rick Dennison as his offensive coordinator year 1, and he had better, once he got John Brown and Cole Beasley, things started to look a whole lot different for Josh Allen. It was like, oh, that was 2019. It was like, this kid can play football. And then 2020, he got Steph Diggs. It was like, oh, yeah, he's got real people now.
So my thing with Josh was always like, I was like, look, he's throwing stuff, but I'm just like, hey, if he reins it in, I'm like, I saw it too, where I'm like, hey, this kid's got the tools. I didn't think he was going to turn out to be this. So it's not just a fan thing. That was just
wildest dreams land. Yes,
exactly. But what you just said is what Drake's going through right now.
100%.
Terrible offensive line. Look, offensive weapons. Like, look, we've got some pieces. Like, I like what Antonio Gibson's done. I've liked what Hunter Henry's done. Pop Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, the guy with the little dime in the bucket touchdown against you guys.
Yeah.
Like, I like those guys, but I know at the same time too, our offensive line is disgusting. Our head coach, I was kind of in the whole keep it for continuity purposes, but it's just now this whole thing where, look, you got, at the end of the day, if you got to fire the coach, it's what's best for business. Defense, which was supposed to be potential top 10 this year, because look, that's just always been the backbone of the team. 30th in the league this year.
Yeah.
So where there's going to be, I think and I say this too because I know Kraft doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want to become what David Tepper is or what the Cleveland Browns have been or the New York Jets currently are, still have been for 15 years. And that's just a franchise where it's like, oh, it's not working, fire them and move on. But I think this one too is more like, the more I look at it, it's more of like a David Culley or a Lovie Smith situation where it's like, hey, new head coach, not a lot to work with, and you've won 3 football games. Congratulations. So we'll see what happens. But I just saw as soon as you're saying all this stuff too, and even my mind goes to Derek Anderson because I always remember the Monday night game with the quote I said from Booger McFarland going, he's a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end. And Devin McCourty getting a pick 6 on Derek in that game. But then I remember there was the game, like with Josh, I remember there was a game in New England later that year where it was a hell of a lot closer. There was the game in 2019.
It was weekend before Christmas.
And then 2019 was the same thing where Tom and the Pats held on by the skin of their teeth against Josh. So that's where you slowly started to see it, even to their loss in the playoffs to Houston that year, where it's like, hey, Josh is like, look, there's something there. Like, even I was saying too, I'm like, get him a wide receiver. And look, I'm very thankful you guys traded the pick that became Justin Jefferson, because if I had to deal with Justin Jefferson and Josh Allen 2 times a year, I'd probably be in hell.
Yeah.
So, but you know what?
There was a 4-year period where it was like, good, you can have Justin Jefferson. We got Steph Diggs, and now it's like,
one of the fairest trades in NFL history. Like,
now it's like, man, I wish we had Justin Jefferson.
But if you didn't have Justin Jefferson, maybe you can't afford Deion Dawkins or Matt Milano. So
it's you're not except for the fact that we're paying $31 million for Stephon Diggs to not be on our roster. I think there was a lot of maturing that came with Steph Diggs. There was a lot of conversation early on about Steph teaching Josh how to talk to receivers and how to tell them what he wants and how to tell them how to act and how to be and where to be and the routes, how he wants the routes run. Like, Steph did a lot for Josh that first year they were together. There was a lot of conversation and a lot of iron sharpening iron as far as, Steph having been in the league and being somewhat successful in Minnesota, right? They weren't a bad football team. And he had Adam Thielen with him back then.
Greatest pass in NFL history.
Yep. And then when he got the Minnesota Miracle, and then when he got with Josh, it was like, no, this is kind of how this has to be, which I think really elevated Josh's not ability, but just took him to a different stratosphere as it pertains to being a leader as a quarterback, because the tools were there. Sometimes you just have to brush them off. It's like, oh, there it is, right? So I think that was more of what it was. So I don't think Justin Jefferson does that for Josh. I think,
It'd be fun and cool, but I still feel like a team with Justin Jefferson maybe not being. I don't know what they were in 2020. I think it was 12-4 or 11-5. I think it was 12-4.
The Vikings or the Bills?
The Bills. The Bills.
I think 12-4 is right. Yeah.
But even still, like with Justin Jefferson right now, this will be his second year in the playoffs in his career with the Vikings.
Yeah, which is crazy. But that's because they've had a revolving door at quarterback. It's been not great. Well, I guess not. I guess they had Kirk for a while. It's just it's bad. Coaching matters. Let's just leave it at that. Let's talk. We talked about this show not being 90 minutes long, but we're headed there. So let's talk about this week's game and then get through this. I don't know what there's to talk about this week's games, but yeah, let's get this thing on the rails. Otherwise, we're gonna sit here and talk for 3 hours probably, because this is a fun conversation.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. It's the ADD football show because Week 18 just brings you a toilet bowl full of crap. No, the only thing no, that's the only other thing I'll just add on to the whole stuff with like when I look, because like if I like the way I look at Drake right now is just like, hey, if he could become like half of what Josh has become, it's satisfactory. I know you don't want to hear that because it's like, look, for most Bills fans, I feel like, but see, that's what I like. Where if it's like a healthy rivalry, where every year, if in 2-3 years from now we're doing what the Bills and the Vikings and the Lions are doing this Sunday night, sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, yes, as far as that goes. I mean, it's
not both 14-2, but like
I'm not worried about Josh Allen. I'm worried about my defense and your crap offensive line, as you call it. Basically, my suspect defensive line couldn't even get to your quarterback. So, I mean, we've got bigger problems, right? So, in my opinion, even to include the playoffs, which is something I've been yelling about for the last 4 years, the Buffalo Bills do this whole rotation of their defensive linemen. We're only going to play them 40 to 60% of the time just to keep them rested and yada, yada, yada. There was 2 or 3 years where he had the most expensive defensive line in football, and they've never produced. Meanwhile, Myles Garrett, J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt, Chris Jones, Hendrickson all play 80 to 85% of the snaps, and they're dominant defensive linemen. Aaron Donald played, 95% of the snaps? And they're like, oh, well, they're so much better. Well, how do you know how good these guys could be if you don't get them into a rhythm? They're never in a rhythm. So it's just, but our defensive line is the problem in my opinion.
I was going to say too, there's another guy like that. He did get hurt this year and he plays for a really bad team, but Dexter Lawrence as well is in that category as well.
Oh yeah.
I feel like he gets forgotten about because of where he is.
Like Quinn Williams plays 90% of the snaps. These guys that are huge and talented, they need to be in a rhythm. When Von Miller was at the height of his career, he was playing 80 to 85% of the snaps. And meanwhile, we're rotating guys at 45 to 55%, guys like AJ Epinesa. And it's just like, this isn't working.
And there's another guy in the draft this year who's going to be awesome, and Abdul Carter from Penn State.
Yeah, hopefully he falls to the Bills. Is he a 4-3 guy or a 3-4 guy?
I'm not. I still have to look into that. I'll probably start.
What position does he play?
He's defensive end.
It still matters, right? So there's a difference between the 3-4 and a 4-3 defensive edge rusher as well.
He'll probably end up going top 5, though. I think for worst case scenario, he's like 5 or 6 because there's. Yeah. There's a lot. This draft this year is, and we'll talk about the games in a second. This draft this year is.
Sure we will, Griff. Sure we will.
The draft this year is basically full. There's like 1 or 2 quarterbacks where it's like, okay, you could take them, and then there's a few quarterbacks that are going to get GMs fired in probably the next 3 years.
That's the draft, though. I mean, this year was an anomaly. The 2023 draft or 2024 draft is very. I mean, these guys are good. Right. So, I mean, Caleb Williams is good. Bo Nix is good. Jaden Daniels is good. Drake May is good. They're all good. It's hard to believe. And who's the guy in Minnesota that got hurt early?
McCarthy.
Yeah. So we don't even know if he's going to be good. I would say at this point, chances are he's not, just based on the law of averages.
Yeah.
But this has been a very odd year for quarterbacks, just because right now they all look pretty good.
And we'll have to see about Michael Penix Jr. as well, because
who looked good enough.
Yeah. And there's not going to be enough film on him out there to where, people next year I think he's that quarterback to start next year. I could see him doing basically what Atlanta always does, where they get off this hot start and hey, they're 4-2, and it's like, look at Michael Penix, and then eventually film catches up and everyone's like, oh, hey, this is how you beat Michael Penix.
That's what happens, and that's what I talked to earlier. And then the quarterback has to learn to adjust and figure out new things that they like to do, right?
Yeah. Which that's my big thing with Drake right now, because look, for as bad as he's been, he has the raw talent, he has the raw tools. But more than anything, what was your initial impressions on Drake, May, just getting to see him live in the flesh?
He was mobile, he was accurate, he was good, he was confident, he was poised in the pocket. It's everything you want to see, right? So I wouldn't say that there was an overwhelming sense of magic there, but he was more than good at what he was trying to accomplish when they were letting him accomplish things, right? I mean, it got to the point where it's like, what are we doing? We're letting we want a high draft pick, not a low one. And then it turned into like, what was that play call? And then why are they punting here? Like, you're only down by a score. Like, you should be going for this. But yeah, I thought he was great.
I don't know if you've ever seen Semi-Pro, but it's like that game. There's a moment in the movie. Because it's that Will Ferrell basketball movie.
Yeah, I know the movie. I've just never seen it.
Basically, they're playing a game where it's like if they score 110 points, everyone in the arena got a free corn dog, but he didn't have the corn dog, so he was basically blocking guys' shots and like intentionally fouling his own players because it's just like we can't score. We do not have the corn dog. So that's like what the Patriots did in that game, where it's just like, hey, we're not supposed to win this. We're supposed to lose this.
That's right. That's funny. That's great. Yeah.
So my thing with this weekend is it's simple. Like, look, if they were to win because Buffalo's playing the JV Bills.
Well, Drake May's not playing either, right?
He's on the injury report. I think if he's not playing, it's weird. He had the head injury against the Chargers, cleared protocol, but now he's got like a right hand and shoulder thing or elbow. But the interesting note coming out is that Joe Milton's not taking scout team reps. So we may see Joe Milton do some, basically for context, it's going to be like Jameis Winston, where if you ask him to throw it 5 yards, he's going to chuck it 80. If you ask him to chuck it 80, he's going to chuck it 80.
Right. Always 80. Everything is 80.
The quintessential NFL backup.
Exactly.
But this week too, if for basically Gerard has a chance to like not save his job, but just like win the fans in the media over for a sense. Because look, the local media here is
winning would be the worst thing they could do. They have the number one pick.
I mean, he's got to win over the crowd because look, if he wants to avoid the fire Mayo chance, and
how do you do that if you're gonna lose?
That's the thing, though. You got to lose, but you got to be great.
Respectfully lose.
Gracious in defeat.
Beat the spread.
This time, I don't think it happens because it's only 2.5.
Oh.
I still think that, look, at the end of the day, unless Mitch Trubisky, I'm not saying he's going to be 2018, but at the end of the day, too, whether it's Joe Milton, Jacoby Brissett, or Drake May, I'm still inclined to go with Mitch just because of also what Buffalo's got as well. Because I don't think it's going to be a complete takeover from Bills fans this week. Like, say if you guys were going for the 1 seed or...
Oh, yeah, it'd be different.
Or if this game was...
If the 2 was in question, right? So if they'd lost last week to the Jets, if we had lost last week to the Jets, the Bills would need this game to lock in the 2. They'd be playing everybody.
I mean, if you lost to the Jets last week, I think your fan base would be kind of on pins and needles. But
yes and no. I mean, the Jets are a team that started playing better football towards the end of the year, too. I mean, Aaron Rodgers hasn't had a bad year, right? So the Jets are just bad. They're just a bad football team. But just a horribly run. Yeah, they never should have fired Robert Saleh, but that's a different conversation.
But yeah, so with this game though, like I mean, in the sense to win the fans over, where it's like look, hey, see people like basically see some young talent that look hasn't gotten cracks a lot this year. If hey, they can look good throughout the game. If you get some players out there where it's like, hey, oh, this guy actually did something. Hey, this guy did this. Maybe throw in a little fun trick play here or there. Like we did it the last ever week 17 finale in 2020 against the Jets, where Cam Newton caught a touchdown pass from Jacoby Myers. Fun fact, go back and watch that game. Our rookie tight end at the time, Devin Asiasi, who, look, that tight end draft class was him and Dalton Keene, and that worked out terribly. He caught a touchdown pass. Like, if I can see stuff like that, like where Javon Baker gets a touchdown, where random guys get in and just do stuff, I'm like, okay, cool, take this forward. Not erase this past year, but just basically, find ways to get better for next year. That's all I ask for.
So have you seen the movie Days of Thunder?
No.
Oh, gotcha. Well, there's a quote in there from Randy Quaid, who's the owner of the race car team, and he has 2 cars, and they're basically just messing things up. And he's like, we look like a couple of monkeys effing a football out there. So that's what you don't want to look like, right? You don't want to look like you don't want it to be football follies on the football field. Butt fumbles. You don't need any butt fumbles.
No, don't need any any passes like what happened to Ramondre Stevenson in that game.
Right.
Like, nothing of that caliber. Kind of
promising stuff. Hey, we're going to be good next year. Like we played the Bills tough and clean in the last game of the season, right? Yeah. Mitch Trubisky is not a good quarterback. So I mean, if Drake May is playing this football game, I think the Patriots win if they try.
I still think there's a chance that with Drake, it's if he plays like the first little bit, but then if the game's out of hand, or if he's just too banged up.
Yeah.
Look, you go for it. I don't want to see what happened last Saturday, but say, because right now I'm not sure what the line is for the over under, but if it's not like what you guys did last week, which I doubt that happens, which I had Amari Cooper in one of my fantasy lineup, not like one of those like daily fantasy lineups, which awesome. Needed 24.5 yards. He got 56 because of that touchdown.
Yep.
Like not plays like that, like not those back-breaking plays, kind of like what happened, like plays like even the wild card game in 21, where I know everyone likes to look at the 7 drives from the Bills offense. I look at plays like the Micah Hyde interception, where it's just like, good Lord that he did that. As soon as that play happened, by the way, that's why I was just like, this is going to be a long day. But the line right now is 37.5. So, and it's 2.5 points. So if the Patriots were to lose by, let's say 3 to 10,
37.5 seems like a lot.
Pardon me?
37.5 seems like a lot.
Oh yeah. This game I feel like is going to be like, if I had to put a bowl score on it, I'm going to say like 17 to 10, something like that.
Maybe. But go
maybe.
ahead. Yeah.
Maybe 6, maybe 14 to 10, maybe a Gami throw a 15 in there.
It's going to be a punt fest.
Yeah. It's Big Ten West football with Iowa and Northwestern.
Right.
No, that's just the thing I asked for. Look, see how they look. And then for you guys, I've been seeing on the injury report, there's a lot of defensive guys. Like, I wouldn't play them. Like, I know Taylor Rapp still appearing on there, DeMar Hamlin, Matt Milano.
None of them.
Jordan Phillips.
None of them are going to play. Well, Jordan Phillips will play. Jordan Phillips is a second or third string defensive tackle for us, but Big Phil will play. But Terrell Bernard's on the injury report. He's not going to play. Like the majority of the football team.
He got hurt in the Patriot game too, didn't he?
No, he played last week. So he hurt a quad last week against the Jets. But yeah, I mean, I would expect, probably not to see much of Christian Benford or Rasul Douglas, right? So you're probably going to see Cole Bishop, and I don't think DeMar Hamlin will play. Most of the guys aren't going to play in this football game. I don't think they're going to have to feel the team, right? So, but I would expect a lot of however many call-ups they can have, which I know they can't call up Zach Davidson. There's certain guys they can't call up again. But whatever guys they can call up, they'll call up. So I wouldn't expect that. You're not going to see Deion Dawkins. You're not going to see Connor McGovern. Spencer Brown probably isn't going to play. Yeah.
Man who's responsible for the Buffalo Sabres winning football games again.
That's right.
With football games, hockey games. Jesus Christ, excuse me. People at the KeyBank Center are going to kill me Monday night. But no, I'll say this to Cole Bishop. He's like that. He's a very raw prospect right now. Where I see the tools with him. Where I'm like, he's got everything to be a good NFL player. He's just like, look, he's missing those little beats, but he's essentially playing like a rookie, like I believe he's a 4th or 5th round pick. So
he's playing like a rookie that missed the entire preseason, right? And all of training camp. He got hurt the first week or second week, I think first week of training camp, and didn't practice in all of training camp and didn't play in any of the preseason games. I mean, he had that shoulder, right? That was hurt for it was week 4, week 5 of the season. So he's catching up.
He's one of those players that he'll really not hone in.
He'll get better.
Sharpen.
He'll get better.
He'll sharpen his tools, and it will really help hone his craft. That's the word. That's the phrase I was looking for. Hone his craft this offseason.
He's a thumper. He's a thumper. He's a big kid, 6'1", 6'2", right? Strong safety. He's a good fit for what Sean McDermott wants out of this defense for sure.
Who's the guy from Buff, the local kid?
Well, there's several of them. Cam Lewis, and then there's Jamarcus Ingram, and then there's one other one. Joe Andreessen.
Yeah, Joe Andreessen, the one who really stole headlines this year
against the preseason game against the Steelers. Yeah, Buffalo Joe.
Yeah, is he on the practice squad or what's going on with him?
No, he's on the 53. He's been on the 53 the whole season. He played last week. He's going to play in this football game. You're going to see a lot of Joe Andreessen.
I think even this one too is a great sense for Bean to develop, to kind of see going into the offseason. Hey, who are we going to stay to keep? Who are those players that we're really going to keep tabs on for 2025? We want to see them take the next step. I think this is a good opportunity for those players as well, where it's like, hey, look, I know for the Patriots, there's going to be a lot of guys playing for roster spots next year, obviously. But for Buffalo, it's more or less, hey, or even who are those guys that can help be that key contributor, maybe get that key tackle, get that key pass deflection, get a key sack, And here's key special teams play as well.
Yep. You're gonna get a lot of that. So it's gonna be fun. So who knows? I mean, the Bills have played the Dolphins last game of the season a couple times with all of our backups and put 50 burgers on them, but I don't think that's gonna happen this time. So
I don't think it's gonna happen either, and I don't think the Mafia takeover is gonna be as big as what it was in Miami last year.
Not for Week 18. No.
I just remember the Deontay Hardy kickoff return, and you see the photos, and literally it's just blue.
That's anybody that goes to Miami's awful. Come on, dude. Their fans suck. Their fans are terrible. Do they have fans? It's like, oh, there's so much other things to do in Miami. It's like, no, there's not. There's not that many other. There's other things to do in most cities of the NFL, and their fans go to games. Your fans don't go to football games. I think there's a few. I think the percentage of hardcore Dolphin fans is much smaller compared to specifically Bills fans and Patriot fans and even Jet fans. Like Bills Mafia is the most displaced fan base in the NFL. More people have left Buffalo than probably any other city in the country. But the Dolphins fans suck, dude. They're horrible.
They do. It's just, I think they're the team that kind of, they basically set themselves up to get their feelings hurt every year, where it's like, we have the team, we've got this. And then look, like this year with New England, like you couldn't, this year it's like, you suck. Okay, cool. We know that. Right. But with Buffalo this year, I'll say this. The first two games, I made some good money because I got two really good bets.
Oh.
The first one was the over in that Arizona game, just because I was like, it's going to be exciting. And I did take Arizona to cover that game because I know they've kind of started to fall apart towards the end, but Arizona was always one of those, like, I'm keeping tabs on you. I think you have the tools to kind of improve, and they've done that this year. I think next year
they had a good beginning of the first half of the season. They played well.
Kyler Murray after the bye is a different animal.
Well, that's when the new Call of Duty, the new Madden comes out.
I joke about that all the time, and literally, it's what happens.
I think it's 100% true. There was a couple of years for the Bills in the drought year where they were very good in the first 5 or 6 games of the season, and then all of a sudden, like, it fell off. And if you check the timestamp, it's when like the new video games came out. It's like, and it's hard to remember that these guys are 23, 24-year-old kids, right? Yeah. They're not old men like me that don't play video games.
I play video games, but I'm not crazy like that. And then week 2, it was the game in Miami where you guys were plus money, and I'm like, why is this the case? And then you went in there and took care of business against them, because I remember from the time that schedule came out, all my timeline was them being like, oh, it's not fair. Why do they get to play at night? Why do they get to do this? Yeah. Basically, they know, hey, you use that sun advantage to your thing, and because of that, the second I was like, that's a losing mentality to have.
Oh yeah.
And also too, I still think of, like, we talked about it too, that game with the Nicky Smokes thing and them dumping Mike McDaniel Gatorade after they beat you guys. And I'm like, there's a difference between being a winning organization, which I never saw Sean McDermott's opening press conference, but I saw the vignette for the Lions game where he's like, we're going to build a foundation brick by brick. And I'm like, he has established a culture there that I don't think a lot of people truly understand how hard it is to set a culture and why culture is such a key ingredient to winning football games.
Agreed. 100%. Can't say you're wrong. Meanwhile, that was the first Super Bowl that the Dolphins have won since 74, I think. So, yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. So we don't go an hour and a half. We're going to play a little game of rapid fire where we say a team, whether I'm going to say a game, and we're going to say whether who's ever going to win or lose.
All right.
Cleveland and Baltimore. I'm going to keep it simple. Cleveland, but I think Cleveland, for some reason, I think they cover the number, because asking a team to win by 20 plus in a divisional game, especially in the NFL, I think is too hard to do. But I think Baltimore takes care of business, but I don't think they win by 3 touchdowns.
I'm going to take the Ravens in that, or I'm going to take the Browns in that football game. Just because they always have a hard time against the Browns. No reason. For whatever reason, they never play the Browns well. The Browns beat them for some reason. I'm gonna take the Browns.
The number keeps climbing up too, and I've kind of come to learn when the number keeps climbing up like that, that means that a lot of money's coming in on Baltimore, and people expecting them to take care of business.
Well, when the money 93% or 95% of the money was on the Buffalo Bills, the Rams beat us. So just throwing that out there. So Vegas always wins.
There was another game like that too. I'm going to check for this weekend. See how much money is there. 94% is on the Baltimore Ravens.
Trap game for bettors.
Also, I'll say this too. If you want to take Cleveland to win straight up, by the way, it's plus 1,500.
Holy smokes! Wow.
$100 will pay you $1,500.
Bruce Nolan says wins are not a quarterback stat. Tell that to the Browns right now.
Yeah, good Lord. I would love to see Cleveland win too, because then it would make Cincinnati versus Pittsburgh just that much more of an exciting game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to get Pittsburgh going at like half a tank of gas.
It would also ensure the Josh Allen MVP. So
yes, I do think though Cincinnati does win here. I think Cincinnati's got a lot to play for, and
I agree.
We've seen Pittsburgh even if Pittsburgh at full speed, they've just been not playing good football.
Can you imagine the Steelers going into the playoffs 0-4 in the last 4 games?
Oh, good Lord! And then they beat the Houston Texans.
Right, which they probably will.
Yeah. I'm going to wait for the ticker to come back around, and I believe it's Philadelphia.
I don't. Go ahead. You're good.
It's kind of a lapse in judgment, because it's like I can only enter 1,000 characters, and it is Philadelphia versus the New York Giants. I'm going to go Philadelphia because look, if Kenny Pickett can whoop the Dallas Cowboys, what's he going to do to the New York Giants?
Isn't he injured? Is he going to play in this football game?
Oh, that's right. The accountant Tanner McKee might be playing in this football game.
Yeah. I think it's a travesty, a tragedy. I think it's criminal that they're not letting Saquon Barkley go for this record. I was in a good, positive Twitter conversation today, just with some people that were like, it makes sense, right? I mean, if he gets hurt, yada yada yada, and the single season rushing leader, all-time rushing leader, isn't that big of a deal. And it's like the reason everybody knows Eric Dickerson's name in 2025 is because he has that record that he got from O.J. Simpson. Like, you're talking about Saquon Barkley going down in history. People will remember his name for the next 30 years until somebody breaks it again. It's just, to me, it's ridiculous. They're not letting him go out there and get 100 yards.
How much do we think that Big Dom was the one who made the call for that? Not Sirianni.
I have no idea. But who am I taking in this football game? It was the Eagles and who again?
Giants.
Eagles and Giants. Oh, good Lord. You got to take the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, Joe Shane and Brian Dable will probably get fired.
I still think Dayball gets fired, and I don't think Shane gets fired.
Shane's got to get fired.
I just think there's a world out there where he's going to throw Dayball under the bus.
There is no way that you can survive not cable television, HBO. We're not going to have our $40 million quarterback hand the ball off to our $15 million running back, and then you release your $40 million quarterback
dysfunctional things.
Like Joe Shane is gone. Gonzo. I think Dable could possibly keep his job, but I think Joe Shane for sure is gone. Joe Shane is not Brandon Beane.
No, I just think that
not Brandon Beane.
I can't see the other one happening because when a GM gets fired and a coach stays, it's usually writing on the wall for the coaches probably and they're going to end up getting fired.
Generally speaking, you are correct. But Brian Daboll has proven he's been with, Alabama. He's been with New England. He's been with Josh Allen in Buffalo. He has proven that he can. What he did with this team the first year he had them, like Brian Daboll has a record. He can put his resume down and be like, look, I'm not the problem here. So. Right.
I just think it's like I said, dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things, and I'm going to hold the Giants to that standard.
I think what it's going to come down to is what is the argument about Daniel Jones? Is Brian Daboll standing in the mayor's office saying, I didn't want Daniel Jones, and you guys gave him the extension, or the mayor is saying, you told us you could win with Daniel Jones, so we gave him an extension, right? I think that's the conversation.
That's the other thing, too, and at the end of the day, ownership's always going to win. Packers and Bears looking to avoid embarrassment going from 4-2 to 4-13. Only 19% of the money coming in on the Chicago Bears this weekend.
Do the Packers need this game or no?
I don't think so. I think that I think it's going to be one of those things where, look, the spread number is 10, so I think the Bears cover the number, but I think the Packers still win the game.
The Packers have clinched a wild card spot. They cannot win, obviously, the division, so they don't need this football game. So, yeah, probably the Bears.
But they want to win this game because if they lose, it's the difference between going to LA or potentially Tampa or Atlanta compared to going to Philly.
Eagles, Rams. Yeah, if they lose, you might be right. They'd be going to Philly. Yep, you're right.
And I don't think they want to do that. So I think they win the game, but I think that I think the Bears keep it close just because look, the Bears they're not even playing for pride. I think they're just playing for jobs and basically look who can get to Cancun the quickest.
Or Cabo.
Or Cabo,
whatever. Both beautiful destinations.
Yeah, whichever one, tickles your fancy.
Going to Puerto Vallarta in February, so yeah.
And I'm going to Tampa and then on a cruise in March.
Oh, good for you. That's awesome.
Yes. And then Atlanta versus Carolina. I'm going Atlanta because I think Carolina is that team basically how I view Carolina right now is how I viewed the Cardinals after last year, where I'm like, they got the tools, so let's see what they can do with them going forward. But I think now they're starting to show that, like, hey, they're still a bad football team for a reason. I think we kind of see Michael Penix do his thing against this team.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, just simple as that. And then Saints and Buccaneers. Usually, I don't take divisional teams as large spreads, but I think I've told you this before. My dad's a Saints fan, but this is a team that either needs to go for it all or burn it to the ground and suffer. And just wander the wilderness, just in the unknown. But I like what Tampa's doing. Their defense is terrible, but they just find ways to win, and I think they find a way to they're going to win and win the division here.
I think somebody needs to give Baker Mayfield his flowers. Last week was championships for most fantasy leagues, and I have Josh Allen in one of my fantasy leagues, and I was feverishly at 12:30 going back and forth with two different friends of mine that are big fantasy buffs, gurus or whatever, and they're telling me you got to start Josh Allen, and I was like, I don't think so. Right? There's really nothing to play for. If they get up, he's sitting down. The weather is going to be bad. It was supposed to be pouring rain and like 25-mile-an-hour winds the whole game. Wins rather. And I sat Josh Allen and played Baker Mayfield. 5 touchdowns later, like I had 50 points. I was like, cha-ching. So yeah.
Also, too, underrated head coaching candidate Liam Cohen to watch out for this offseason for that.
Oh, interesting. That's an interesting conversation for sure. Yeah, it's a most boring head coach in football, Todd Bowles. Anyway.
Oh God, yeah, we know that from his Jets days. The only other thing I'll say with this team too is that if there is a team that the Lions, because I'm going to say this too, if the Lions lose this game, I think there's a potential upset. Because guess who's beaten Detroit? Guess who's one of 2 teams to have beaten Detroit this year?
Well, the Bills and is it the Vikings?
Buccaneers.
The Bucks. That's right. That first game of the season, right? Second game of the season. That's right.
And Baker Mayfield played terribly. It's just the Lions couldn't execute. So it's like the Lions have that. The Buccaneers have that formula to beat them.
Yep.
Dallas and Washington. I'm going to go with Dallas to cover, but I think Washington wins just because I think Washington coming off that big win last week against the Falcons, they kind of like, they plateau and find their groove. But I think ultimately it's going to be probably Washington going to Philly or LA.
Here we go. I think you're right. So I've nothing to add to that.
No, that's it. As I wait patiently for the ticker to come back and waste more time, as we're going for 90, folks. We're going for 90. Can we do it? We don't know. Indianapolis, Jacksonville. This is gross. This is disgusting. This is ugly. I'm going Colts just because the Colts have the bounce back.
Who gives a shit about the game? Let's talk about Brian Thomas Jr. BTJ. So can BTJ be good as he was this year, next year with Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback, hopefully for the full season, which probably won't happen because that dude's made it glass too.
Yeah. I'm going to say yes, but I think he's going to be one of those players when his rookie deal comes up. He's going to be.
I'm asking about next year. You just went 4 years ahead of me. Like, what?
No. I'm going to say this. I got to tell the full story.
Okay.
Because he's going to be that. How do I say this? He's going to be the cleanest pig in the pig pen. All the other pigs in Jacksonville are going to be covered in shit. He's going to be the one there that's just like, hey, I'm doing my job. What the hell are you guys doing?
Who's down there? They've got some good players. I mean, Christian Kirk is there. Gabe Davis is there, who all he does is drop the football. And then is it just BTJ after that? I thought there was somebody else there.
They have Evan Ingram too, but he kind of had a down year. Travis Etienne's really regressed this year. And then
he's the guy. So Brian Thomas Jr. is the guy that the Bills wanted in the first round, right? When BTJ went, the Bills traded out of that pick to Kansas City to give him Worthy, and then they traded back down out of the first round and took Coleman,
who you'd rather have. I still say
possibly. I mean, we'll see how it goes. To me, I'm not sure the Bills could scheme Worthy to get him as productive as he's been, but even with as productive as he's been, Coleman has missed like 3 or 4 games and his numbers aren't that far off, which is wild. But yeah. So that is an ugly game. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's just the thing too. Or I say it's like, or even too, he's the one who's contributing 95% of the group assignment, and the group still tanks. That's how I look at that game. Like that's how I look at him. Where it's like, in a few years from now, it's going to be like, oh hey, you could pay Brian Thomas Jr. or you can like let him walk, and I think he's him. And I still say this with the Giants, but for all their fans that kind of go on the Malik Neighbors stuff, where it's like, Malik was the right pick. I'm like, okay, yes, but at the same time too. And I say this with the Giants, they should not have made the Brian Burns trade. That was
right.
Yeah, the Brian Burns trade was essentially if you go to Wegmans with your daughters and they want Oreos, and then you cave in and buy them Oreos when they were younger.
The only reason I ask is because I have CeeDee Lamb and Brian Thomas Jr. on a keeper league. You can only keep 3 players, and you can't keep it in the same position. So I've kept CeeDee Lamb the last several years, and CD is CD, right? I mean, he's so good, but it seems like Brian Thomas Jr. might be better next year.
I'd honestly keep Brian Thomas Jr. just because with CeeDee Lamb, he's good, but he's only good when he's at his best when Dak's in the lineup. And Dak's been, the ankle injury, the hamstring.
He's made of glass too. My decision this year was between Saquon Barkley and Kyron Williams. I had those 2 last year, so I had to make the decision, and I kept Barkley. So,
and then Tennessee, Houston. I don't know. This is just like a tune-up game for Houston. It's the same thing.
They're gonna sit guys, right? So,
big question for Houston, Tennessee is Bill Callahan one and done? Brian Callahan one and done? I don't think so, but Tennessee.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
New starting quarterback next year. And then our game, New England Buffalo. I think you guys win. But like we say, this game's going to be ugly, and then I get to miss my team for 10 months.
Punt fest.
Yes.
Dick Duran football.
Denver and Kansas City. I'm going to go with the crazy one. I think the Chiefs win this.
Really, you think the Chiefs actually pull that out against Denver, which means the Bills will be playing the Dolphins
or the Bengals,
or well, you got the Bengals winning. We haven't gotten to the Dolphins game yet, have we?
No, because they put that game at 4:25 for
right.
whatever reason.
Right, and the Dolphins are going to be playing Skylar Thompson. They've already said Tua is pretty much not going to play this game.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I don't want to play the Bengals first round. Oh, I don't want to play the Bengals first round.
Because my thing with this game is just, look, it's 10 points. I'm not going to, even with Carson Wentz, I'm not going to trust the Broncos to win a game by 10 points against Kansas City.
But Carson Wentz sucks something awful, and they're going to be playing a lot of their backups. Chris Jones isn't playing in this football game. Pacheco's not playing in this football game. I mean,
Jones and Mahomes, that's it.
Yeah, no, none of their starters are playing in this football game. They don't need this game. They don't even care.
I still think their young guys will probably see some time, like a George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, etc. I think those guys.
McDuffie is not playing in this football game.
Like maybe like a half, not the full game,
I can't see it, but we'll see.
I gotta be spicy. You know, you gotta like find something good. It's like going to a bad restaurant. You gotta find something on the menu you're gonna like.
Carson Wentz, baby, it's nothing but bread pudding. So
Arizona and San Fran. Look, San Fran is just the San Francisco 49ers are gonna have an offseason like you guys just had.
Arizona's gonna win this football game.
Yeah, but I agree with that take.
Yeah.
New York Jets and Miami Dolphins. I want to see the Jets win just for the laughs, you know?
It would be funny to see the Jets beat the Dolphins. They're probably going to.
Yeah, because like when you look at
this, we're going to face the Bengals.
Everything sets up for you guys to have a stressful weekend, which if you had to pick a playoff game time to have, what would it be? Probably
1 o'clock on Sunday. Yeah, I mean it depends on who we're playing too. I mean, if we're playing a cold weather team, 1 o'clock on Sunday. If we're playing a West Coast team, 1 o'clock on Sunday. If we're playing a cold weather team, prime time is fun. So I mean, it is what it is.
All right. LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. I'm gonna go Seattle because I don't think LA is playing anyone. I don't think Matt Stafford's playing in this game.
No, they're the 3 seed. If they're the 3 seed, they're sitting everybody.
They're the 3 seed, and also too, it's important for them. I'll also say this too: for if Detroit wins the division, that's one team you don't want to see coming into Ford Field.
Agreed.
You do not want to see them coming into Ford Field. It's just recipe for disaster. Chargers are going to take care of the Raiders, which will probably lead to. Which, if you want to talk about a team that's really effing up their draft stock, and also to, we're playing for our coach. No, your coach is getting fired.
Yeah, Antonio Pierce is done.
I always said that should have never happened.
But they played well. I mean, the team rallied around him, and he had a plan. I mean,
Freddie Kitchens-esque to me.
I liked it. I liked it. I hate it when interim coaches come in. The Bills did it a couple times. Fired a guy. Interim coach actually did well. Fuel, right? Perry Fuel was one of those guys. The Bills rallied around him, and they were like, "Yep, don't need you," and then went and got a piece of trash off the dump heap instead, and the Bills sucked still.
So Jeff Ulbrich, no.
Oh, he's getting fired. Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked to see Darren Rizzi get the job full time in New Orleans.
I have no idea, dude.
Think about it. Who else is going to coach that team? He already knows the guys. Look, they had some bad games, but he's kind of that glue guy that they already like. So I could see it.
That's Antonio Pierce. You're now arguing for Antonio Pierce last year.
But it's also, too, because I don't think the team's going to be good next year. It's like the Raiders. I always said the Raiders were going to be bad this year.
I think the Raiders knew that, too. I think the conversation here is more about what are you going to do without Max Crosby, who's going to basically probably force his way out, right?
Oh, my God. And probably end up for a Detroit and being a Detroit Lion, who I will say this right now. There is a running back in college football named Cam Skattebo who, if Detroit did not need a running back, he is a Dan Campbell player through and through. Like Dan Campbell would love him.
Yeah, he's tiny.
He's tiny, but like the guy can move. Yeah. But with Detroit, Minnesota, the big question I have for you is the number's 56.5. Do they hit the over?
Oh, they hit the over. Yeah, that's going to be probably no punt game. Neither one of those teams plays defense well.
Yeah, that's the thing too with this game, because like last time these two teams played as well, like they just no score points. I'm gonna say this though, this game, for as good as Minnesota's been playing, and I know there's that thing of what's the horn called there? The
skull?
No, the horn that like they blow into when they do the skull clap.
They don't really blow into it; it's all for show. But I forget what it like. I forget who was it? Jamie Erdahl did this. It's like you're not blowing into that thing. I appreciate the fact that she didn't want her lips to touch that thing, of which I'm sure that they disinfected it, but it's not real. What the heck is it called? The horn in Vikings Stadium.
Starts with a G.
It's the Gallahorn, right?
Gallahorn,
yeah.
No, I obviously know it's like an audible noise out, but it's just ever since she blew that horn, they've not lost a football game, and
Sorry, go ahead.
But also two best celebrations. Can't bind them.
It's literally the noise from War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise when those big machines come out of the ground. It's like that's all it is. It's like that's the noise that those machines made. I don't get it.
I'll say this too. I did listen to a bit of the game Sunday on radio. Paul Allen, their local radio guy, does a pretty good job calling their games.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have the worst in the NFL. We've gone from freaking Ted Darling and Rick Jeanneret and Van Miller to just, and John Murphy was okay, to now it's just like, can that guy do it? Yeah, let him do it. It's just awful. It's pathetic.
And then isn't Sal Carpaccio on the radio one, or does he do like sideline?
No, he's sideline reporter.
Oh, okay, so he's down in the field talking to all that stuff. Okay, that makes sense. But with this game though, I'm going Detroit just because look, they're that team that like, and I'll say this too. I say this because I think for Kansas City, they don't need the bye. Detroit needs the bye, like I'm saying earlier. Yeah, I know Minnesota had an early one too, but I think if Detroit doesn't get the bye, they're dead man walking. But if Minnesota doesn't get the bye, I think it's that kind of that kick in the pants. They need to really accelerate them.
Right. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I like that take.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
I like Detroit. I don't know if I like the -3 number. I could see this being a 2-point football game, but I love 56.5.
Yeah, that's a big number, and I think they beat it.
You know what? We have 200. We've had 256 games played. We have 16 to go, and then it's the playoffs.
That's the playoffs. That's the single elimination tournament, which the Buffalo Bills have not been good at. Not as bad as the Dolphins, but they've not been good at.
No, but I'll also say this too. I think this year, because of how bad regular season football's been and how many teams declare themselves to be bad early on, I hope this year we actually get some good playoff games and not like what we've seen in college where it's just blowouts. I want Arizona State, Texas, even today in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah,
I want games like that, where it's just competitive football for the next month after this week.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll see what happens. It'll be exciting anyway you look at it. And I'm still on the fence. I mean, obviously I want the Buffalo Bills to go to a Super Bowl and win, but I'm really concerned and scared about the Buffalo Bills going to a Super Bowl. So, because I lived through 4 of them. So,
and I just get to watch my team for one more time and then realize I don't see you again until September, but then I just get to enjoy football for football. And for as much as I love to watch the Patriots, I love watching football for watching football.
I can send you a Bills hat. I've got a lot of them. I've got this one. I've got this one.
I'll stick with my pal, okay?
I've got these 2. I've got a bunch over there. Like Sabretooth.
Go Sabres. Like I said before, I have my uncle, quote unquote, Sabre season ticket holder, so he got me a Sabretooth. He actually one time I was doing a show with Greg and I put him like right on the right there on the microphone just for like a fun little effect. Now I think you're gonna stay there for a bit.
That's nice. I like it.
Yeah, but you know what? It's just pretty much now we get to enjoy the tournament, and then for as much as the offseason sucks, the offseason's good too because more of these organic conversations can happen because that's all you get to do for 7 months is just think what's going to happen next.
Except my network does 6 shows a week, which sucks in the offseason. So.
I can imagine. I try to get more content actually right now because right now is the time for content for all of those football people.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, for sure.
It's the time of year that you grind, you get through it, and then boom. Because before you know it, hey, free agency's here, boom, the draft's here, boom, schedule releases here. The only downtime really is from, I'd say,
July,
mini camp till training camp.
Yeah, June and July, death months, and yeah, it's always the season I tell people not to wish their summer away. Do not wish your summer. Enjoy it. Do not wish your summer away. So, yeah.
And also the time of the year you're in the news for either getting paid or getting arrested.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't like saying that. It's just that's what always seems to happen. It's either like, oh, hey, player X signed a $500 million contract, or he got a DUI.
And unless you're Rashee Rice, and then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's another story for another day. But anyway, guys, the regular season is over. We're here. Joe and I had a ADD-laced football conversation.
It's great. I loved it.
I loved it too. But anyway, guys, for Joe, I'm Griff. Go Pats. Have a good night. I'm letting him get the last word in.
I said go Bills.
Oh, I know. I just can't hit record.